As of 2011, 39 Marlborough residents have served as mayor of the city of Marlborough. Settled over 350 years ago and not considered a city until 1890, it was almost fitting that the first mayor was one of Marlborough's most prominent and successful businessmen. Born and raised in Marlborough, Simon Herbert Howe, perhaps best known for his shoe factory past, was inaugurated on January 5, 1891, after defeating Dr. James Campbell by 461 votes. Public service was nothing new to Howe, as he had also been a selectman when Marlborough was a town. He also sat on the trustee board for Marlborough Savings Bank, eventually becoming their president. Howe made sure his shoe factory would forever be remembered when he incorporated a picture of his factory into the city seal. He may have only served a one-year term, but he does hold the distinction of being Marlborough's first ever mayor. Simon Herbert was now out of office, but in 1892, the last name Howe followed the title of mayor once again. George Howe was in. His inauguration day was on January 4th, officially making a two-time loser out of Dr. James Campbell, who ran unsuccessfully again. Once again, Marlborough's highest office would be held by a successful local businessman. He was the co-owner of the Howe Lumber Company, along with his father, Elbridge. Until 1892, George's biggest claim to fame was serving in the Civil War, at the age of 15. After a tight race of only 188 votes between winner and loser, John O'Connell took office on January 3, 1893. O'Connell, the third straight Republican to take office, devised a plan where residents who paid their taxes early would receive a discount. In 1894, the difference between the Republicans taking back the seat of mayor and the Democrats falling again was just 164 votes. William Davenport, an attorney by trade, took over that year and apparently did such a good job that in 1895 he would become Marlborough's first two-term mayor. Davenport was the first mayor to appoint a sergeant in the police department. On December 3, 1895, Alderman Charles Bartlett would make it 4 out of 5 Republican mayors when he beat out Timothy Curley. Bartlett would serve 2 terms as he planned the construction of Marlborough's new high school, known today as the Frank D. Walker Building. Yes, that Frank D. Walker, but let's not get ahead of ourselves. The Democrats got back into the mayoral seat in 1898 when Eugene G. Hoyt, a surgeon at Marlborough Hospital, became mayor. He would be the last man to serve just a one-year term for the next 6 years. Edward J. Plunkett would keep the Democratic ball rolling for 2 years in 1899 and 1900. The 29-year-old shoe salesman and stable operator beat Walter Morse by only 50 votes in 1899. Not a bad act for a man who currently is still the youngest man to ever become mayor. Another man would tie that record, but that wouldn't be for a few more years. We think Plunkett also had a favorite number, 1,247, the amount of winning votes he received in both elections. Walter B. Morse may have been a runner-up in the 1800s, but the early part of the 1900s belonged to him. Morse, president of the Marlborough Enterprise, won his first of 3 consecutive terms in 1901, beating out Charles Favreau. In his second term, he beat out William Doyle by a then-record 680 votes. Morse would form the City Hall Commission to plan and build the current-day City Hall after the original was burned down on Christmas night, 1902. He would win a third term in his closest election result yet, beating out Frederick Milden by 117 votes. Democrat Frederick Milden would come back to challenge Morse for the seat of mayor for 1904. This time, he wouldn't lose, defeating the three-term incumbent by 257 votes. Milden was well known for continuing the plan of the new City Hall, as well as the fire and police stations. It takes a strong candidate to defeat an incumbent. Henry Parson did just that, beating out Milden. He would serve 4 of the next 5 terms. In 1907, he was defeated by Edward Brown by a count of 54 votes. Undeterred, he would return for 2 more terms in 1908 and 1909. John Shaughnessy beat out a crowded field in 1910. The 4-man contest included former 4-termer Henry Parson. In 1911, Shaughnessy again defeated a crowded field of 4 candidates. J. Henry Gleason would unseat Shaughnessy in 1912 and serve for 2 years. Thomas O'Halloran followed with 2 terms in 1914 and 1915. In 1916, he lost out to Lewis Farley, who ended up with the horrible distinction of being the first mayor to die in office. That happened on November 19th. John Fry, an alderman, would serve out the rest of Farley's term. In 1917, William Pine served for 1 year, beating out former alderman John Rowe by 100 votes. Charles McCarthy won the seat of mayor back for the Democrats for 3 years. In his first election, he only beat former Mayor William Pine by 29 votes. In 1921, Patrick Sullivan won the seat, and for the only time in mayoral history, there was no inaugural speech. The final 2 one-year terms went to Edward Simoneau, as he took down the seated mayor in 1922 and a former 3-termer in 1923. In 1924, local attorney James Hurley became the first mayor to serve under the new modified Plan B form of government. In 1926, Winfield Temple beat out Hurley for the first of his 2 terms. For his second term, Temple fought the law, and the law didn't win. Full-time police officer Phileas Broder was the first officer to run for the seat of mayor. Amadee Martell became mayor in 1930, beating out former mayor William Davenport by 1,383 votes. He had the Bigelow and Hildreth schools built, which had been met with strong opposition, so he declined to run for a second term. That brought in City Councilor Charles Lyons, who would go on to win 3 consecutive terms from 1932 to 1937. A dark and eerie cloud would form over the next elected mayor when Louis Ingalls took office in 1938. Things were going well for him, beating mayoral powerhouse Charles Lyons. Ingalls won a second term, which began in January of 1940. When spring hit, a scandal involving the mayor started to take its toll. In December, Ingalls left a suicide note for his wife and took his own life by jumping into the icy waters of the Fort Meadow Reservoir. Ingalls' death left the office of mayor to City Council President Michael Cronin. At the end of the term, Cronin would win 2 of his own terms in 1941 and 1943, 43 being a landslide victory where he carried every ward in the city by a 3-to-1 majority. Cronin's reign would come to an end in 1946, when he was beaten by Carlton Allen, who would go on to serve 3 terms. In winning his second term, he flexed his political muscles by beating challenger Arthur Lafreniere by over 3,600 votes. Marlborough would then see its second consecutive 3-term mayor take office when Romeo Gadboy defeated former 3-term mayor Charles Lyons for the seat in 1952. Gadboy was instrumental in starting the now famous Labor Day Parade in Marlborough. Frank Kelleher was elected in 1957 and served just 1 term as he declined to run again. That opened the door for Qusan Haddad, who served 3 terms from 1960 to 1965. After his 3rd term, Haddad declared he would not run again for a fourth term. Haddad's decision left the door open for Frank Walker, who served just one term. He sought a second, but was defeated by Frederick Cole, who would serve 2 terms from 1968 to 1971. Walker was Cole's opposition in both election seasons. Another Gadboy would become mayor again in 1972, when Edgar served 2 terms. Frank Kelleher decided to jump back into the political ring after almost 2 full decades, when he defeated Joseph Ferrecchia for the right to become mayor in 1976 and 77. Just as quickly as he jumped back in, he jumped out again at the end of his term. It may have come 2 years later than he wanted, but Joseph Ferrecchia became mayor in 1978, and he would go on to serve 3 terms. For the first time in Marlborough's mayoral history, the sitting mayor would run unopposed in 1979. Ferrecchia was so well liked that he would run unopposed again 2 years later. In November of 1983, the ultimate battle of the heavyweights took place. Former mayor Qusan Haddad entered the ring to take on Ferrecchia. Haddad, the man who said he would not run again for mayor, became Marlborough's first, and to date, only 4-term mayor. In 1986, insurance broker Chester Connery won the seat of mayor twice, beating out Ferrecchia both times. Connery would not seek re-election in 1989. That brought Ferrecchia back to seek a 4th term, but he was beaten by 29-year-old Michael Hogan. Former Mayor Edward Plunkett now had company in Hogan. The 2 are the youngest men in Marlborough history to serve as mayor. In 1994, former city councilor Michael McGorty would serve 2 terms as mayor. William Morrow, a one-time city councilor, got back into local politics in 1997 when he unseated McGorty to become mayor in 1998. The former barber by trade would go on to serve 3 terms, choosing not to run again for the 2004 term. Another city councilor would become mayor in 2004. Local businessman Dennis Hunt served 1 term before losing a re-election bid in 2005. Marlborough's 39th mayor would make history as the first female ever to hold the position. Former school committee member and city councilor Nancy Stevens took office in 2006 and is currently working in her 3rd term. Women have come a long way in Marlborough politics since 1983 mayoral candidate Mildred Bolt collected 180 votes. The City Council and School Committee have seen many successful female residents hold those public seats. What does 2012 hold for the seat of mayor? Will the incumbent seek a 4th term? Or will the longtime City Council president become Marlborough's 40th mayor? Well, as history has shown us before, only time will tell.